Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spotlight with Ivy. On this season, we have with us the Beacons, and on today's episode, another Beacon is here. We have Abisola Owolawi in the studio, and I can't wait for you to meet her. See you soon. Welcome back. On today's episode, I have with me media correspondent, television anchor, producer, and documentary filmmaker. That's a lot of titles, I know. But welcome with us, Abisola Owolawi. Thank you. Hi, Abisola. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, rather.
Nice to see you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I have to get used to not calling you Bisola, to calling you Abby, because I'm used to calling you Bisola, but actually Abby. Right? Abisola. Yeah. Nice to meet you. So you have like a couple of titles: media correspondent, television anchor. What does it feel like being on the other side of this conversation? Because you used to being on this side, what does it feel like being on the other side?
It's a little odd, I have to say, but at the same time, it's the beauty of it because I get to understand where you're coming from quite intrinsically. And it's refreshing to be on the other side, actually, we'll have to say.
Great. So we'll start with some icebreakers. I would like to start with icebreakers just to get to know you better.
Yeah.
Is that fine?
That's sure.
Okay. So imagine you can instantly learn any language. Which two will you choose?
I will go with those that have global dominance. Mm-hmm. I would want to perfect French. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll look at some, Portuguese as well. It sounds very weird, but then you have Francophone Africa, you have Lusophone Africa. So it'll be a smart move to learn both.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
What experience do you think influenced you to the media space?
Right. So it's very funny. Every time someone asks me about that, the first thing I think is that right from when I was a child, I always had a fancy, a flair, an inkling or an interest in the media space. I didn't know it to be the media space that.
You do.
Yeah. But I had always been a writer. I would write, little poems. I had like a little collection of poems. I called it Thoughtful Corners. And I would just fill that up and I would just share it with my dad, was a staunch academic, to sort of prove that, hey, I can also write, And sometimes, in fact, I also have images of me almost imitating a newscaster after we watch the news. And I would just randomly just draw up an entire, news segment in my head and I would just read it to the family. So they knew that there was a little bit of that media personality in me. It was only as I progressed later in my life that I, of course, began to actually realize and look at career paths. So I knew I definitely was a creative. I wanted to do something very creative, and that had to do something to do with writing. If I was not in the media, I would be in advertising, which is a sub-genre of the media. So anything that allowed me to use words, that allowed me to piece ideas together and create a notion or something completely new out of that. That was when I started to realize. And of course, as I progressed in my career, that also led me to different paths in the media. So I knew, okay, yes, I'm in the media, but is this the part of the media I want to spend my time in? And then I started to explore across the industry.
But what did you study in your undergrad?
I studied journalism, media studies particularly, yes.
People like you make other people look bad, really, because it's like, oh, we always knew this and that was gonna go.
Yeah, for me, there was that. I couldn't debate it. I knew it was my first choice. It was my second choice. I just knew that I had to at least explore it.
But did you know what you didn't like? Because it's like I feel like I hear you say, I always knew what I liked. Right?
Yeah.
But I hear people say most times, I knew what I did not like.
Right.
And they were trying to find what they liked. So were you also clear on what you didn't like? When you just knew things what I like, that's all.
Yeah. So as much as I appreciate science, I have never been very scientifically inclined or endowed. Let's put it that way. So I appreciate it a lot. I am more of a reason versus logic kind of girl. And I just couldn't really see myself put my feet in that space and excel at it. It sounds a bit limiting, but it was not my natural gravitational force. I just knew that I had my creative side was going to battle with the scientific side of things. So I just knew that science, not for me. But I have a great deal of appreciation for it.
If you're supposed to pick a second career,
from
something that you would have probably done, what would you have been?
Advertiser.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know if I mentioned. Yeah,
I mentioned that.
Advertising. I think anything to do. So advertising, copywriting, that world on its own is very underappreciated, I believe. There's a lot more to do. I don't think that, especially in this part of the world, I would say, I would probably have to rephrase that. I don't feel there's like a lot of appreciation for the art of being a creative in that space. Because it's the kind of work where you could completely conceptualize an idea right from the scratch, and it becomes a multi-million-dollar brand in 10 years, 15 years. It could be 2 years. It could be instantly. And this is something that is such an intangible. So I cannot put a price on it. I cannot say this is the value of this creation because it's in me. It's not something that you can pull out of me. You can only get to experience it. And I may never be able to replicate that creation again, ever. So the fact that I cannot put a price on it is where I begin to compare it to the appreciation for it as a skill and an art. In fact, not a skill, as an art.
Yeah. Well, I like that you call advertising an art because it is an art because you're taking a lot of ideas and trying to make one, and like a one piece, like in that instant you can see that you can see many things. Yeah, that's what art is. You can look at it in one way.
Very subjective.
Yeah, very subjective, based on the individual, and I love that about it. So you studied journalism in school, and did you go straight into journalism job when you're done?
So here's when it comes to that path. I studied media studies and journalism.
Okay,
but I also was very lucky to have been in my high school. In fact, before I actually got into university, I was already cherry-picked from my high school to do an internship at a top South African media firm. That was my very first professional exposure to the media world, and that's when I knew for a fact.
Anyway, cherry-picked.
So we had this a program where different employers would come to like different schools. Usually this happens at university level, but for some reason that year they decided to come to high schools. And they came into, I was the head of the cultural committee, so that was the head of debating society and public speaking. And for some reason they opened up to us the opportunity to compete for an internship with the SABC South African Broadcasting Corporation, which is like the top national public broadcaster in South Africa. And I happened to have been chosen alongside a few other interns. That's what we were, interns from other schools. But I was chosen from my school to be a part of this. And that's how I got absorbed into the South African Broadcasting Corporation, which was pretty much my first professional work experience in the media space. I was about 19 years old. Yes, I knew I always wanted to be in the media, but I did not expect that I was really going to be thrown into it. But I had the most amazing eye-opening experience. I was just a field reporter. At the same time, I was a runner on a morning show that was actually a breakfast show, a national breakfast show that had the most eyeballs in the country. And I was a runner, the little one they would send around to, get things. But I was so excited to be there every day. I didn't care that I was not even really, being a journalist. I was just like so excited to be in that environment and seeing all that was happening around that. And that's when I really knew that this is a place that I at least wanted to explore being in.
So how long did you do that internship for?
The internship was about 3 to 4 months. 3 years, pretty much short. It was just like a job shadowing. That's what it was called. That's it. A job shadowing. Yeah. So I had a mentor. So I still remember his name very clearly today, on Janji Chalke. And he was like a big name in South Africa. He was like a big reporter. He used to do the big political stories, and I would go out into the field with him. Or sometimes he would just send, can you talk to a few people? Just the random stuff that you would send the interns to do, or, But I had the most amazing. It was just such a beautiful experience, even just thinking about it right now. Yeah.
And when you were done from that, did you have to go back to school?
So yes, when I was done from there, I went back. But this happened in my final year in high school. So that already prepared me and geared me for what I was going to study. It was already cast in stone. I had already done my application. So I of course, got absorbed into the media school. I haven't come out of the biggest broadcaster in South Africa. And then I was thrown into the real academic world. It was more writing essays, making sure that you're not plagiarizing, because as a journalist, you need to have your original thoughts, right? So things like that. I was very antsy. I couldn't wait to be back on the field. I couldn't wait to be in front of a camera. I couldn't wait to be doing the real thing. Yeah. And I don't think I really appreciated that experience, especially in my first year at university, because I just felt very edgy and I just felt very, come on, can we get out of the classroom and do some stuff, which we eventually got to do. But in that moment, I was juxtaposing that experience, of course, with the world I had just experienced. Yeah.
Shadowing.
Absolutely.
So you learned how to do the basic things that you would not learn in front of the camera. All those things are foundational for you to be able to build the perfect
absolutely
newscaster. I didn't know what newscaster,
or media
broadcaster in front of the camera. So you, after your university in kinship, what came next?
Okay, so by that point I was already pretty much, how do I put it? I was a junkie for searching for anything media related. At that point, the biggest names in the media world in South Africa were, or the most popular names, in fact, at that point, were entertainers. They were doing the entertainment news. They were these guys that, and a lot of people had said, because at that point in time as well, I was also doing like TV commercials as like a part-time.
Okay, so that was
so I was, exactly. So I was being cast for different TV commercials and billboard ads and things like that. But these were like just little things that we were doing as students to make like extra money. But I very quickly realized that I did not want to be boxed into being an entertainment journalist, because I also looked at the lifespan of such careers. It was very hard to maintain the longevity of it in that market, particularly because a fresh batch is going to come in every 5 years. A new blood will come in, and before you know it, you've been pushed out of it. So I knew that I had other interests. I've always been very business-minded, but in a creative way. So I many times see myself as a creative entrepreneur, a creative businesswoman in many ways, or I don't know how to juxtapose the correlation between the two, but I've always been very business-minded, and I knew that I had an interest in the business world. So I knew that I also wanted to go and learn more about that, and that led me to pursue my second sojourn into the academic world, and I applied to go to the University of South Africa to study business economics. But I was already working. I was already in the professional world, even if it was just different jobs, temporary jobs here and there. And I knew it was going to be very hard for me to balance both my studies and stuff. But in South Africa, they made it very easy for you to do correspondence or to find ways to make that work. So I explored going for business economics. But in that very moment, I skipped a very important part in the story. When I was really considering becoming a journalist, there was one big impetus that pushed me in that direction. And that was me spending a lot of my formative years in South Africa, I'll put it that way. I felt I sort of developed a massive appreciation for the South African story in terms of its history. As you know, South Africa went through a lot of struggles, apartheid South Africa. And I began to consciously dig into the history of South Africa. In fact, I was so obsessed with it at some point that I was talking to as many of my peers, anybody that would lend me their ears. I just wanted to know what they went through. Of course, my peers were so much younger, and it was their parents that went through apartheid. And sometimes I would say, could you please introduce me to your mother? So I can just ask her about what happened and things like that. But I had also developed a massive a great deal of respect for the figure that was the late Nelson Mandela, because he was the figure that pretty much unified a country that had been through the most difficult times. And I was enamored And I had so much deep respect for this guy that I knew that I wanted to just talk to him. I don't know how to even say this. I just wanted to have a chance to ask him so many questions. When I think back at it now, I'm like, why was I thinking all these things? But now the only people that ever got to meet Nelson Mandela, apart from his family and other stuff, were journalists. So I knew that for me to at least get closer to that dream, I at least had to become a journalist.
Yeah.
So that was that was a major springboard for me getting into the journalism field. When I think about it now, it was quite naive of me because up till today, I never got a chance to meet him, but it played a very integral role in one of the reasons that I actually explored getting into that field. For whatever reason, call it youthful exuberance, call it, naivety at that point, but it also led me to experience one of the most definitive moments in my both professional and personal life, that decision to have explored going into journalism. But now let's go back to where I was, business journalism. So at that point, I was trying to make myself a little bit more competitive in the market because I was like, everybody's an entertainment journalist fresh from uni.
But did you have any experience that made you feel like you need to be more competitive? Apart from you thinking that,
yes,
lifespan of an entertainment.
Yes, absolutely. Because at that point, for you to market yourself, you needed to have a portfolio, right?
Okay.
So if you're trying to get into the media world, especially if you're trying to get into television, be it as an anchor, be it as, just a reporter, you needed to have some sort of portfolio. My portfolio then was extremely thin because I had my internship at the SABC, which a lot of people thought, wow, you were so young and you got that opportunity. But I was still not considered a professional. I was still like somebody who was just wetting her feet, And the other experience I had was a lot of the advertising work that I had done, which they pretty much termed as entertainment. So I realized that I was being boxed into this entertainment pod. And people were saying to me, oh, Channel O is looking for presenters. Channel O back then was like a big thing. And there was another platform in South Africa called YoTV. YoTV was like the hip kids, but it was like kids presenters. They were like sharp. They were on the move. They were the coolest kids on the block. And people were like, you should really audition for YoTV. And as fun and amazing it sounded, then I just asked myself still, like, but what would my lifespan be after that?
Yeah.
And of course, I took the chance to go to a few of those interviews. And one of them I had such high hopes for. And I was completely shattered later on because they said to me there were so many people that were really, really amazing. And there was not really much that they, I didn't stand out. Let's just put it that way. So I knew that, I didn't stand out because there's just so many of us. How do I find a way that there could be fewer of us? Or how do I stand out more? What's my unique selling point? And that's when I knew that I could not just be an ordinary or just the title of a journalist or basically being hoodwinked or into the entertainment space. And because I also already had an intrinsic desire and fascination with the business world, I knew that business journalism was not going to be a bad idea, and that's how I explored business journalism. And
it basically married your interest.
Absolutely. And I can't explain what that decision had been for me because I went all of a sudden from a young journalist who was searching for sort of begging for gigs to one of those that were in demand.
Wow.
In that market, just because of how niche that space is. And also my age at that point. I got into the industry extremely young. A lot of people that were business journalists were in their 30s already. There were people who were business, a lot of people consider really boring. So nobody wants to be talking financial markets, and they're just like, oh, stop. And then my age made it a bigger pool because they're like, oh, she's young, she's interested in business. She looks like she can string a few sentences together. Let's give her a chance. And that's how I, got into that world, and CNBC Africa gave me an opportunity at that point to explore.
Okay, CNBC Africa, is that what brought you to Nigeria?
So CNBC Africa, yes, they are the parent company of Forbes Africa. Okay. So Forbes Africa, CNBC Africa are sister companies. So after a year and a half when I was at CNBC Africa, in fact, when I was at CNBC Africa, I got in there as a program creator and a media sales executive. So what I would do is I would create a program for them and then look for sponsorship opportunities, brands across Southern Africa that were interested in investing in that program, and then we brought it to life, which was very exciting for me because I was using all my creative faculties, created a show, we had a first reality show, business reality show, and I just really loved the fact that I was a part of that. So when I did that for a year and a half, but I still realized that I was not really enjoying the sales part of it because I also had to go sell it. It's like you create something and I had to go sell it.
Now, what convinced you?
Yeah, so I was like, that part is sort of taken away from the whole thing. Then the platform purchased the Forbes Africa franchise. And that was going to come to West Africa as well. And I was asked to come to Nigeria and head the West Africa arm for the Forbes Africa editorial. And that's how I moved back to Nigeria.
Wow, like life took you from Nigeria, Africa, and then now brought you back to Nigeria. Yeah, amazing. I think one of the things you said about you wanting to meet Nelson Mandela, I think what life was trying to show you was maybe not Nelson Mandela, but important figures. You're right. And since that time till now, I know you've met like pretty amazing people.
Yeah.
Like, can you share some of the experience and some of the interviews you've had, some of the people you've met in your career?
So I met a lot of, I think the most gratifying and rewarding part of my work is not just the people I meet, but what they leave me with. Mm-hmm. And those have been the most enriching experiences of my life, especially within my career space. So for me, everybody is an important meet. I can't say to you, this person was more important than the other. That's how I approach my work. Everybody that I have met have left a big impression on me. No matter in one way or the other, it's what lesson you have left with me. But those that have stood out the most for me, or I would probably say young entrepreneurs who are bootstrapping, who came out of the most comfortable situations and said, hey, I want to chase this dream, and it's all I have, this dream, and my will to achieve it. Those have left such a massive impression on me, and they've also driven me even beyond being a journalist to pursue bigger dreams, especially in markets where, and I'm going to use Nigeria as a very good example because, as you know, the dynamics of exploring the business world here, the terrain is completely different. They have infrastructural challenges. Access to finance is also a huge bottleneck for business owners. Startup change of policies, inconsistency around that. So there are so many constraints, so many odds that the young entrepreneur would face. But the beauty of it is that it has been done. People are achieving it. And the fact that that's happening is a huge testament to the fact, to the promise that lies even within this market. And those are the most important people I have met. If you understand what I mean by that, yeah. Those are the most important stories that I have had the honor of being able to share with others by them sharing it with me. Yeah.
Great. I think you have you've done a couple of number of shows on some of these stories. I follow some of the things you do.
Yeah.
On I don't know if I mentioned your report for Arise TV.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. In case I didn't mention, I've done a couple of stories.
Yeah.
And I saw one on science and females in science.
Yes, in technology. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about some of the stories that you've done.
Right. So for Rice Television Aspects, we do special reports and documentaries alongside anchoring the morning show, which airs like every weekend. But the special reports, those for me are, the best way I can explain that is a good way for me to sort of almost pick issues and then go microscopically into them, which I totally enjoy doing. And seeing the people behind those particular stories, what effects it's got around them. So, of course, I'm talking a wide variety of different stories. The one you highlighted is women in tech. So, for instance, we are very aware that access to finance for women in terms of financing in comparison to their male counterparts in Nigeria is, in fact, in Africa, is abysmal, which is, very shocking, actually. But you also find, on the other hand, people will ask you questions like, but is it a matter of women are not getting this funding, or are women just not putting themselves out enough for it? Or are there fewer women in comparison to the number of men going out there to go after these opportunities? And these are all very valid questions. So this is what it allows me to explore. There is not just one approach to a story. Stories are about perspectives. So I could look at it from this pair of lens, and you are sitting on the other end of the room, and you're saying to me, Abby, that's not what it looks like from here. And that's what these special reports allow me to do, to bring different voices. Also in a style that I enjoy. So my style is, I have a storytelling style. So I have to juxtapose using visuals, using sonic techniques, and using storytelling to piece my stories together. And it's a style that is very, very true to me. And I've really enjoyed exploring them. I've really enjoyed exploring these different stories, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I want to camp a bit these women in tech, women in general, women in business, because the reason for doing this series, what do we call it? It's not the entire show, but the series that we're shooting now is to show women that are doing great stuff. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of women doing things. There are a lot of women still yet to do these things. There are a lot of them still yet to make these kinds of decisions. But there are people that are still playing slow or just not wanting to, still well out of their comfort zone or try and find new expressions for themselves. What have you found what are some of the most amazing stories you've seen, or situations or contrasts you've seen with women that it look like where they're coming from and where they're going to don't match presently?
You mean in terms of how they approach it?
No, in terms of what they're doing now. So what can you tell me one story that you've seen that you like, or where did this person started from and how far this person is willing to push themselves to go? It's something that is really inspiring.
Is something that's really inspiring. Oh, so there's so many of them. And I can talk from the arts to science world, to tech space. So I'm going to go way back a little bit. I met an artist who, at that point, she's somebody who's brilliant. She's a brilliant artist. She's a massive talent, undoubtedly. And at that point, she was at the peak of her career in Nigeria as at the time that I met her. But when we had a conversation, I could see, or I could tell from the direction our conversation was going, that so this is somebody who really doubted how much further she could go. Because here I am now. I'm one of the biggest names here. Where else can I possibly go, right? That was the mentality. That was what I was getting from the communication, which led me to ask directly, is this correct? And she says, it's spot on, because there's a ceiling, and that's the word she used. Like, where am I going to go beyond? I'm so lucky to have been here, to have gotten to this point. Why should I gaslight myself with the expectation of going even further? Because I feel like I have already hit the ceiling, and I'm even too scared to touch the ceiling for the fear of the fact that this is the end. Wow. And I thought that was such a lucid statement that stayed with me, and it also made me introspect. Me as a career person, do I share this sentiment? And many parts of me agreed with her at that point. Many parts of me. So imposter syndrome is something that is real. I believe that a lot of professionals generally, men or women, experience it, but a lot of women particularly experience it more because it's almost, you look at another woman competitively, or there's not that appreciation for you as an entity and how much you have in you and how much further you can go. So I was definitely a victim of that too at certain points in my career, where I felt as though, is this too ambitious? How are people going to receive it? You know, the question when you start to ask yourself, how are people?
Yeah.
What's the world going to say? You know, so of course, with some hindsight, anybody could fall victim to that. Yeah. Just by the way, anybody. It's not a matter of having some sort of, defect or whatever. It's just a normal thing. With some hindsight, I am glad that I experienced that, because now I know how to identify it now when I'm having those kinds of feelings. And when I'm talking to women who are almost self-doubting, I can recognize it because I've been that. And I can recognize that it's a real battle. Mm-hmm. It's not something to be taken lightly.
How do you fight that battle, though?
It takes a lot of, the first thing I would say is, and this, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, but this I could say definitely is very helpful. Be very mindful of who you keep around you and who feeds into your mental space. Who you give power to say to you who Abby is, who Iboko is. Because only you can reinforce that narrative. And if you believe what the external is saying to you, there's only so much you can do to convince yourself, because you will continue to look at that mirror, which is not, you look at that mirror, but instead you're not seeing yourself, you're seeing what the other person has been saying about you, or their doubts. So self-doubt a lot of times is not just about, that's why you meet some very brilliant people and you're wondering, oh wow, but you have so much, but the word is you have so much potential. Yeah. So potential becomes this word in itself that is such a ticking time bomb, because you're like, potential, is this just something I've bottled have I just put it in a bottle somewhere and one day it will manifest? How do you tap into potential and make it reality? Only you can do that. And of course, luckily, if you are lucky, having the right mindsets to feed you, to encourage you, to push you, because those are the voices that will take you and reinforce, help you water and grow, this plant within you that is just waiting to blossom. And of course, I'm talking about different people, but I also mirror myself in them. You know what I mean? Because I see myself in those experiences, and I had those moments where I doubted myself. Yeah. And I'm not talking moments, I'm talking years where I felt like I was stagnating, and I knew I would wake up and just feel like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Those are the kinds of questions I was asking myself. What am I doing with my life? And am I ever going to feel alive, like in what I'm doing in that space? And those moments were very limiting, because those were the moments where something would say to you, but you've hit the ceiling, or you're about to hit the ceiling and there's a ceiling. Yeah. So catch yourself, Yeah.
Like, it just makes me wonder, how do you see yourself? Like, what I mean is, I remember watching Kanye West's documentary, and he said his mom was telling him, a giant looked in the mirror and saw nothing. And for the fact that at first I didn't get it, but until I was like, oh wow, because it's very difficult to see you, to see who you are, to be able, because people see you, so because you think that because they see you, they understand you better, and because you can't see you think less of yourself, or you think that there's a different perspective that they're not getting. It just doesn't add up. So how do you get to see yourself? People can see you and see your potential. Like we talked about potential now, and that's the beautiful thing about potential. It gives you the opportunity to be able to actually actualize a dream. Yeah. But when people don't even see that potential, they don't see themselves, what do they do to be able to see?
For me, the best way to answer that for me would be to kill anything that allows you to compare yourself to anybody. So I believe strongly that I am a unique expression of the universe. A unique expression in the sense that I possess my qualities, you possess your qualities, and no two people are the same. I have within me what it takes to, we keep using this word potential. I have potential to manifest my higher being within me. It does not have to resemble how you manifest yours. But the thief of the joy is me looking at you and saying, oh, I'm never going to be able to manifest that because look how great she is. Oh my gosh, am I ever going to, what am I even thinking about? Who am I? All those self-limiting, self-deprecating thoughts. And once you can get rid of that, the easiest way to do it is to remember that we are two different people. We are many millions, multitudes of different people with our unique qualities, strengths, missions in life. Mission, the key word too. My mission is completely different from another's. We could luckily share spheres of influence where that's why you find people that you connect with deeply in terms of what your missions are in life. And you feel like this person, if we collaborated, we could do great things because we share certain passions and missions. That being said, you will also have aspects of your mission that does not completely align with mine. And at that point is when I need to recognize that let her manifest that. My inability to do so does not make me a lesser person. Because guess what? I have another inclination that is just as beautiful. So the thief of joy is comparison. And I've learned to let that go because I have always been a very competitive person. Being competitive was healthy for me when I was growing up because I spent a lot of my life in South Africa. I was not just a black South African, I was a Nigerian black South African. So I was really at the bottom of, Nigerians did not have the best image. So you had to be really good for you to be noticed. And it's a trait that I'm happy of value. I'm happy that I inculcated at a young age because it allowed me to not sit back and relax and be like, oh, this and that. I always had to prove myself. I always had to be better. I always had to tell myself, okay, please see me, And the only way you're going to see me is by me being good, me being better. But that kind of comparison or competition is different from that which is destructive. Because some women, or not just women, this happens, this is not gender specific, where the competition becomes unhealthy. And guess who suffers for it? You. You, at the end of the day. So once you let go of that and start to appreciate, and that's when you start to almost discover new levels, discover new sides of yourself, of your being as a creative, as a scientist, as an artist, you will begin to discover yourself because now you're not comparing yourself to what lies in somebody else. They could desire so hungrily that which you have. But because you don't recognize that you even have it, you have not valued yourself. And that will be my approach to that question. Get rid of comparison.
Wow. So your journey has been in the media world, from the age of 19 till now. Do you think in the next 10, 20 years, it's going to be diverting into something else? Do you think purpose allows you to divert?
Yes, I absolutely think so. So I feel like, yes, media is sort of where I feel at home. That's like home to me. But there are many Abbies in me. And they have different manifestations to be birthed. So there is the Abby, the media professional. There is the Abby, the businesswoman. There is the very curious Abby who is, of course, discovering the newer parts of her and the paths that she would like to explore in future. So I have never... I told you earlier, I struggle with giving a title to myself.
Yeah.
So I can't... When people ask you, what do you do? I really struggle because people expect me to be like, oh, that's so easy. But it's really difficult for me because I feel like we also live in a society where you are tagged as what it is that you do. That almost, it's like replaces your name.
Yeah.
Like what you do is what your name is.
Yeah.
And I find that a defeatist way of living my life. I want to pour as much of myself into the different molds that allow me to create newer versions of myself. And I look forward to finding what the Abby of the next 10 years will be doing. It could be still in the media, but doing something out of my own mind that I never thought I would be doing in 10 years' time. And I can only hope, pray, and aspire to become that person who is exploring as many different versions of herself come 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Thank you so much. There was a lot of wisdom I got from your stories. If there's one thing I'm going to pick is there are different modes that I have, and I need to pour myself into all those versions of me. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Ibuko.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. I do hope you enjoyed yourself also. Until next time, my name is Ibuko. See you next time on Spotlight with Ivy. Bye-bye.